Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is Freedom. This is the Breaking Free show, where we share how people become free and how we each and every one of us can help each other become free. And we do that in all kinds of ways. And today we have just such a really special show. And so before I go on with the show of the day, I want to say hello to Amnon. Hello.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah,
Hello.
well, it's morning somewhere.
Yeah, I know.
How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good. How was your week?
So far, it's been great. I'm looking for some sunshine.
Oh, me too. And how was your weekend?
The weekend was good. Worked.
Yeah. Well, I think when your work is your pleasure and your pleasure is your work, it doesn't matter when you do it. You just kind of sort of do it, right?
Yep.
Well, cool. All right. So today's show, I just want to tell you all, anytime we do a show, you are more than welcome to call in anytime, ask questions, comment, anything, because this is live. This is a family. If you're watching this show and you're watching it on YouTube or on Facebook or Twitter, anywhere, and you didn't have a chance to call in, but you have a question, always write something in the comments, and we're going to get back to you ASAP, because that's how important all this stuff is. And so today's show is really cool. And I'm going to introduce my guest to you today. His name is Tim Duffy. He is the founder of the MusicMaker Relief Foundation. I had no idea what that was. I had absolutely no idea. And then when I started reading about what they do, I was like more and more. It kind of got me. I got more and more involved in listening and watching and understanding what this is about. And this is about the music of our soul. It's about Southern music, and it's about our history. And it's not just about the history of the people who live in the South. It's about all of our history. And that's what I realized today. History is about all of our history. I don't care where you're from. I don't care if you're Roman, if you're Greek, if you're Indian, whatever it is. Everybody's history is all of our history. And so this is a really interesting show. And I want to welcome Tim Duffy to the show today. Hi, Tim.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing all great. So glad to be here on your show.
Good. I'm glad to have you here. And I have lots and lots of questions, and I have lots and lots of things that I want to get into. So I'm really happy you're here. And I want to say one thing. Tim and his wife, Denise, are the authors of a book called We Are the Music. And it's preserving the soul of America's music. And I want to just say, this is the blurb on the home page, on the front cover of this, and I thought it was very fitting. Through the efforts of the MusicMaker Relief Foundation, these amazing people and artists have been able to live dignified lives. In many cases, they were rediscovered during their golden years by Tim and Denise Duffy, then given the joy of new recognition by their families, peers, and fans world over, Taj Mahal. Okay, so first of all, tell us about you, Tim, and your story.
Well, my name is Tim, and I'm always traveled around and always loved elderly musicians, and got an opportunity to go to college in Asheville, North Carolina, and study with old-time mountain musicians, and I spent years in Kenya, in Mombasa on the Kenyan coast, studying Swahili music, and then I got a graduate degree in folklore, and got to study blues musicians. And when I got my degree, I look back on my education, and I loved all these old-time music makers, but realized all the great musicians I love lived in real poverty. And so I've since that time, since I graduated from graduate school, I've dedicated my life to helping these elderly musicians I love through the MusicMaker Relief Foundation, which is a nonprofit that aids a lot of musicians. Their average income of $7,000 to $10,000 a year. They're rooted in the Southern music tradition. Most of them are 55 years and older. And I talk about the programs, but that's who I am. Is over the last 20 years, we've helped over 300 artists get CDs out, put heating oil in their tanks in the winter, and get prescription medicine every month, so they can put instruments in their hands, make CDs, and get their voices heard.
Is this a movement? I mean, is this a movement that's happening like, nationally? I know you're doing things globally, but is this a national movement to preserve?
To us?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, to us, we most predominantly work with artists in the Southeast, but it's globally, if there's not one world music or one world popular music that hasn't been affected by the music that was created in the South. And so, in that sense, it's a global movement because everyone looks towards the South, what happened here hundreds of years ago, up to the present day. Guys like Snoop Dogg from Mississippi, this is the epicenter of, for some reason, what happens here in the South is the aquifer for which all music drinks. So the interesting thing, music people drink from. The interesting thing most people don't understand is that music was created by the African American and whites and the Indians and Hispanics and the working class cultures throughout the South, in working class communities, and still to this day it is. And I would say over 99% of the music was never recorded or no one knows too much about because it just happens in small communities. And what MusicMaker does is reach beyond the lines of poverty and class and education and highlight some of the elderly statesmen of these communities. That most of them had jobs as bricklayers or construction workers or domestic work or work in factories, but held dear to this elderly music that maybe they learned from an auntie or a grandmother or passed down through in their family. And so we record it, get the stories, take the pictures, and what's different about MusicMaker, instead of just putting on a record and never hearing from us again, or doing an academic paper and never hearing from us again, we make true partnerships with the artists, and if they want to work together, we can help with a hand up, not a hand out,
Right.
Try to get the music heard and treasured, and everyone can benefit from the situation.
So, so you said they learned it from an auntie, or they learned it from here, they learned it from there. Is that still going on? Are they teaching
The
it
blues
now?
is a spirit. It's something that it's frankly just does not die. It just keeps going and going. When we first started, we started helping elderly musicians. I couldn't foresee then that we would help younger musicians. We call it the Next Generation program. There was a young group called the Carolina Chocolate Drops that learned all the repertoire from an 80-plus-year-old man. And then with that core repertoire, they won a Grammy for the record they put out. So there's always, seems always someone in the culture that's watching out and latching on and reaching back. And that's always happened. And plus, things that are once new become old. And like Sam Cooke songs, there were once this popular songs, now they're national anthems. I guess you say that about Bob Dylan and Stevie Wonder songs too. Those are our hymn book. Solomon Burke. So that, can you still see me? The computer went off, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you can still see me.
Oh yeah.
Okay, great. And so that's what happens is, music keeps evolving and changing. And so, there's a myth that something always just goes away. And it's in some part, people go, but the music still exists, and the root of it, no matter what form of it, still exists, because that's why we have traditions.
Right. Just want to, if you tap the space bar, you'll be able to see again.
Okay.
I have a little quote or suggestion that you wrote, I guess, that was in the book,
Well,
and so I
I'm
just
sorry,
wanted to share it. And it said that Tim shares his work with everyone in the hopes that you will.
When I moved them, I hit something.
Oh, can you hear me? Oops. Can you hear me?
This is
Okay.
bad.
He'll be back.
There.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
It's still going. Oh, you turned the volume down.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear us?
I'm sorry. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's
I hit
okay.
something on the
I was
computer.
just getting ready to share something that I read in your book. That you, this is what you said, what you do, and you share, you sharing your work with all of us in the hopes that we will look more closely at the unrecognized greatness that surrounds us. And you ask that we each seek out the everyday heroic acts of art that will enrich our lives. I mean, I'm
That's
paraphrasing it a little bit because it wasn't from you, but that's very, very true, isn't it?
yeah, that's what my wife Denise wrote, and that's
Okay.
true. It's like you know, hey, they could be your dad, anyone. It's all around us. You know, people doing good things, and then you don't have to uh, go far to meet great people that are doing great things, that are interesting things. It's all just right around you. You
Right.
know, when I started doing the blues at school, at graduate school, they told me that there was no more country blues left. The culture was gone. You know, I had great academics come tell us that, but it didn't make sense when I went to visit bluesmen and started to meet dozens and dozens of them. They're all around here in the South in every city, and it just meant that was their perspective because they stopped walking out and looking and knocking on people's doors. You know, I realized their world closed. The blues had died for them, but it didn't really stop. It, you know, it's always around you.
Right.
Music is always here. It's always going to be
Right.
made. It's, you know, it's something that will just never go away.
No, last week I did I do a Google Hangout every week, and last week it was about listening to nature, and we invited this woman on who plays, she plays the violin. She lives in Cornwall, in near England, and she was amazing. And she listens to nature, and she
Oh
plays,
yeah.
and it was fabulous. And we were talking about how amazing music is. It's a universal language. And you don't even have to speak. And she played a piece of music, and there was I think 6 or 7 of us in the show, and each one of us had something different to share about that music. Each of us had a different experience of what we saw that music meant, and each one of us was exactly what the composer had in mind.
That's amazing. Well, music is, and music. If you can't play music, a lot of people play music and makes something makes you feel good inside. But if you can't play music, you can play the radio or collect records and listen to music. And you know, every culture loves music. Where every person, you know, if I'm scared. I kind of might be scared of you if you just don't like music or feel music at all. I don't know. I haven't met anyone like that yet, though.
No, 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 no. So I want to. I took some pictures out off your website that I'd
Great.
like to show. Now you won't be able to see them. I'll have to tell you what they are, and then maybe you
Okay.
can tell us what they are. None. You got. Okay. So this one is an older gentleman with a blue guitar. Do you know who that is?
With a blue guitar.
It's blue, right?
I
Yeah.
don't know what.
Okay. Well, he's an older gentleman just sitting on a stool with a blue guitar. And this is typical of the musicians that Tim has interviewed. And then the next one is somebody by the side, right? What does he look like? I can't see. What is he?
Oh, that was Robert Lee Coleman.
Which
That was a
one?
great-
With the blue
the man
guitar?
with the guitar. That
Yeah.
was Robert Lee Coleman. Yeah. That's Dr. Bird.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now that's a great guy, Dr. Bird. We met him, and he was like meeting our Buddha or like Gandhi like character. He had studied nonviolence under Coretta Scott King in Birmingham during the civil rights movement, and his mom was very involved, and he organized marches. He was shot at, lost his thumb, use of his thumb, so it was hard for him to play guitar. Victim of a hate crime, did hard time. But he was nothing but love and felt nothing but love, and this peace exuded from him. And he had never played a show, never recorded. And at the age of 72, I took him to his first show to Australia, actually to the Tasmania Royal Botanical Gardens with a review show of MusicMaker. And we played between John Fogerty and that Australian rock star Keith Urban. And when he walked out on stage, he got a standing ovation. It was just, that's how his presence. And the same thing happened when we went to Lincoln Center. He just, and this was a man who never performed ever. And that's the most
He had
amazing
been
thing.
performing his entire life. He just never performed in front of
Yeah, never
Rockefeller
outside of his community.
Yeah.
Never at a club.
Yeah.
Never
had to.
just house parties and
Yeah.
juke joints and things
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
And it was, so that was a powerful, and that's the amazing thing of all these artists we have worked with. No matter how big the stage is or how high the bar is, they just walk out without any nervousness and just relaxed, and they take it.
So what is it that they are going through in those moments? What are they feeling?
I think it's well, Dr. Burt would say there was like a dream come true, something that they always dreamt of is happening to them at 72, when they thought their life had passed them by and they wouldn't have any opportunities anymore. And here comes a time they get to go travel the world and play their music, get recorded. Dr. Burt traveled, all throughout Europe, became well known in France. I remember there was a music museum in France, and he walked in there, and the curator pointed to the ceiling, and there was a beautiful portrait of Dr. Burt painted, mounted on the ceiling. He said, "What am I doing in the ceiling?" He says, "No matter what, Dr. Burt, they'll always have to look up to you here."
Yeah.
And those kind of stories dumbfounded these guys.
Your mouth must have dropped open a million and one times when you heard these stories. When I was looking through the book and I was looking at some of the quotes and things they said, I was like, oh my God, how profound.
They're very profound people, and they've learned lessons to. I don't think when you meet someone like Dr. Burt to go through what he had been through and to really embrace social change and go through that, and it was still making the fight. These are American heroes, but not everyone makes it on the scene or in the history books. There's only so many pages, or there's only so many TV channels. But this guy was this, a plumber, that did his and played the blues and was a social rights activist, and spreading that word.
So Tim, this music of the South, it's not just the blues. I mean,
No.
It's a combination of different music, right?
There's so much music that was born down here. There's and we support a lot of different kinds. There's bluegrass, old time music, there's a lot of gospel music, jazz, Native American music, even like in North Carolina, Thelonious Monk, John Coltrane, are right from here in North Carolina, to all sorts of music. I don't know. And the amazing part, these guys invented all this music on Friday night, Saturday morning, and Sunday in the church. This is working class people invented this stuff. When you hear these great old Southern melodies and Southern songs, they go into the folk idiom. But if you really trace it back, there was a person that wrote that song. Like if Bob Dylan didn't have a publisher and a record company, you would think "Blowing in the Wind" is just a folk song. But we know Bob Dylan wrote it. But we know Robert Johnson wrote "Sweet Home Chicago," but "Home on the Range," there's some cowboy that wrote that song too.
Right.
We just don't know who it is.
Right. So when you said that, you were saying something about when they walk up on the stage that they just do it like that, like it's not like it matters, but they don't get all nervous and bent up out of shape about it,
nervous,
do they?
Confident, and they just awaken that it's an opportunity that they've dreamt of, and they know how to take charge of it and just go ahead and do it. It happens time and time again. We were just at Lincoln Center with Ironing Board Sam, a great old R&B legend. He's in the book, and Beverly Guitar Watkins, a great woman guitar player. And we were the first act, and we had just as many people there to see them as the last act of the show. And they just stole the show. It was just wonderful. You know, the more people there, the more better they play.
Yeah, and I think that they have a sense a true sense of gratitude and appreciation when they walk
Yeah,
out on that stage.
Yeah, and then if you play the streets, you know, for 30 years, and you finally get a chance to walk out on that stage, they know, you know, they're not gonna mess up. They know what's going on. It's like their overnight success has taken 50 years of hard work to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, so
Right.
they know what's happening, and they're cognizant and aware and joyful to be able to perform.
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, I have some more pictures. There's a picture here of a gentleman, we think on a scooter or in a wheelchair. Do you know which one that is? Do you know? In a robe. Do you know which one that is? He's got a guitar.
Oh, okay. She's gonna show it to me. Oh, that's a great guitar. That's Carl Hodges. He had just had his leg amputated. You know, he was from the Chesapeake Bay, from Saluda, Virginia, and a wonderful working class. He was a well digger. You know, just liked to dig wells in that sandy soil. And actually we started digging when he was a kid. He told me a story. He dug so far, his parents couldn't find him for a day. You know, he was stuck in there. But he just played good old down-home blues and was a sweet, sweet man. You know, he would drive down to visit us with his friends. And that's the main thing that we do that we didn't intend to do at start, is make a community. Carl would come down and visit Micah Vine and meet Eddie Tigner and meet Beverly, meet John D., and all these elderly people, and a lot of elders in our country, they're stuck at home or in their nursing homes, or they're not at work life, so their social life gets smaller. And so all these bluesmen, we introduce them to each other, and we go to shows together. Like that fellow there, we went to Europe quite often, went all over the country together, and they have friends. And then when his leg was amputated, actually Micah Vine and Captain Luke and a lot of his friends, blues friends from North Carolina, we all got in a car and went to visit him, and that's why we're there that day. And so that sense of community, I think at some point it means more than the money or anything that we do.
And I think one of the most interesting and perspectives to get from all of this, I mean, we talk about freedom here all the time, and we have people on doing all kinds of things. And here you have, people, men and women, not expecting a darn thing. They're just out there playing their music. They're living their life. They're not expecting, they have no expectations. They can't even imagine, maybe in their wildest dreams, having their dream come true. Or maybe they don't even think about this being a dream. They're just picking that guitar, or they're just playing their music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they get it, and they got it. And then you get this man pop up, Tim, and his wife Denise, and they create this opportunity out of nowhere. Look what's been able to be accomplished. That's what life's about.
That's what's been accomplished. And it's nice to be on your show, but I always try to keep myself centered. It's not,
You're frozen, Tim. Your internet, You're frozen. We can hear you, but your picture's frozen.
What do I do to unfreeze us?
So,
like my frozen picture.
Bear with us, everyone. It's worth it. I promise. I know that sometimes these connections can go cuckoo, but don't go anywhere. Hold on to every story that you hear, every situation that you get to be a part of. Just hold on. And we have some more pictures. I don't know exactly who they are, but Amnon, could you show... these are the people that Tim is inspired by, and these are the people that we're inspired by. And then there was another group picture, right? I think it's number 4. There you go. These are in the back roads. This is where the talent is, and this is what these people do. They come around together, they play, they inspire each other, and they're not waiting for anything. They're just out there playing their music. Here's an interesting an interesting quote that I was reading Tim's book, and one of the gentlemen in the book said, "I caught it from my cousin, who caught it from my uncle, who caught it from the blind boy Fuller." I thought that was great. They just picked it up. It was like storytelling, and they would hear a story, and then they didn't think about, being this great maestro. They just got their guitar and started playing, or they started drumming. They didn't even give it a thought, which I think is great. They don't even think about, do they sound great and are they on tune? It didn't matter to them. Storytellers don't care. They just play, and they get better and better with age. So it's very cool. I was reading this one story in the book, which I loved, and it was the story about this woman who, see if I can get her name, Etta Baker. And she wanted to do this, and her husband wouldn't let her. She wanted to play music, and her husband wouldn't let her. And hopefully when Tim comes back, he'll be able to explain it more. But she, when he died, she started playing music. When he died, when the husband died, so he started playing music. She started playing her music, which is really great. So the other thing that Tim and his organization do is they help schedule these musicians to play. They get them gigs all over the world. You heard him talk about being at Radio City or, in Europe and wherever. So these musicians at their ripe old age of 60, 70, 75, 80, I can't even imagine. I'm going to ask him when he comes back how old the oldest is. They get an opportunity to play in their ripe old age, touring the world. So it's just amazing what Tim has been able to accomplish. Here he comes back, but let's see. Tim, yeah, I know he's coming back. So here's another one. This is Jim.
Am I back?
Oh yeah, here you are. We're seeing you. Oh, you're
Okay.
almost coming back.
Okay.
Okay, but while you're doing that, I was talking about, I read this quote from John D.
Yeah.
I caught it from my cousin, who caught it from my uncle, who caught it from Blind Boy Fuller.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah. And Blind Boy Fuller, I don't know if you know, he was a recording artist here from Durham that recorded in the late 30s and actually sold 500,000 records. So probably one of the first crossover hits. And so pretty important guy. And John D, like knowing Robert Johnson or knowing just a big famous star in your field.
So they make money with this talent. They make money touring around with you. What do they do with this money? I mean, how does that affect their lives?
Yeah, well, John D just moved to another trailer, in a nicer place where he could live. A lot of people, like a lot of good grandparents, help their kids. That's the problem. The poverty is just not isolated just to them. There's these whole communities of poverty that we a belt, probably from throughout the South, different parts of the South, and so a lot of times with the money they'll get themselves situated and then they'll start helping their kids. That's what I mostly see.
And that's what they do. And how much money do they make? I mean, really?
Well, not much. That's the thing. If the average Social Security, I was saying, is average between $4,000 and $10,000. But sometimes when a partner artist comes in, we're easily to double or triple that income. So maybe go from $10,000 to maybe $20,000 to $30,000. In really big cases, we've had guys, grossing, $100,000.
Wow.
How does
that change? So how does that change their?
Well, Cootie Stark, probably the most successful, he has spent a lot of times being hungry. So he spent all his money on taxi drivers to restaurants and going out to eat. And he spent the last years of his life never going hungry. Wow. I always got a kick out of that.
Listen, Tim, I'm not suggest that you stop your video and start it again because it's just spinning? I mean, we can hear you, so that's great.
Oh, okay,
But
we
if you
did. We
could just,
stopped the video and started it again. And should we try it again?
well, it's still going around and spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't disconnect. Just stop the video, the camera, and
Okay.
then start it again.
Okay, so now should we hit start again?
Yeah.
And then we can just keep on talking while you're doing that.
Okay, yeah, it keeps, I call it the wheel of doom. It keeps going around and around.
Okay, so here we go. So what about Etta Baker? I loved her story.
Etta Baker,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, she was a highly influential musician. She recorded a couple tracks in the late 50s that, influenced people like Bob Dylan and Taj Mahal and Paul Simon, everybody in the folk field. And then her husband wouldn't let her go to play. And then after he passed in 1976, she just quit her work in the mill and said she's going to start working. And then she had a little good run of it. And when I met her at 80 years old, everyone said she was too old and her music was no good anymore. But it wouldn't give her any record deals, so we put out probably her best record, Railroad Bill, and put out subsequent 3 more records, and got her her royalty payment, a large royalty payment for that record that never went out of print, and she did quite well, and made a significant income and a lot of attention brought to her. Kenny Wayne Shepherd, a rock blues guitarist, included her in a film with many other artists, and she lived to be 92 years
Wow.
old. And,
So this is, this is magnificent. This is truly magnificent. To be able to, first of all, we're all a part of the story, and to be able to hear what has been accomplished for, let's say, Etta, who, was told she couldn't do something. And then,
80.
Yeah, man. And then she goes and she
Lives another 12 years.
and like enjoying her life, I would hope, making some money,
And she
going
passed
out
away
in style.
after a show. She had made some money, and she was going on checking on one of her daughters who was in her 70s to help her out, and she passed away coming home from, visiting her daughter. That was her thing. You mentioned we had someone, Frank Edwards, who was 93, who did a recording session with us. Didn't want to stay for dinner, and our friends were driving him home, and stopped at a rest area and had a heart attack and passed away. 3 hours after his last session with us, and he was doing what he liked. He was recording. He was had a new record coming out. He was all happy about it, and so talk about going out with a song. He really did it.
They went out. They came in with a song and out with a song.
Yeah.
So here's another one. So here's George Higgs. George was a Piedmont bluesman. He grew up farming in a little Carolina hamlet called Speed, a fast name for a slow town, he used to joke. When he was young, he traded a hound dog for his neighbor's guitar. The hound dog came back home, but George kept the guitar.
Yeah.
Cool. These are such amazing stories.
Yeah, and that's another fellow that just worked, was a carpenter and farmer, and came up sharecropping, and he sharecropped with his dad and him, but they would work all year and not clear a dime, just get enough corn, cornmeal to make bread and live off their farm. I mean, imagine growing up, with a family and no cash income for the first 25 years of his life working. So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you find all of these musicians. Why not just put their music out? Why is their story so important?
Well, the story is so important to know who we are as a nation and where we come from. If you don't know where you're coming from, how do you know where you're going? And so for kids today or other people coming into this country to know what happened here with these folks, and to hear how they lived and how they made it through and the choices they made, and a lot of their stories of perseverance and and smartness, and it's inspirational, and it just attracts me as a human. And I think when you read and see these people's photos and read their stories, it's entertaining, and you might learn something from it.
Well,
So that's the
yeah,
hope.
it is. I was here's one that I loved, Essie Mae Brooks.
Oh yeah.
Tell about Essie.
Well, she has that great song, "Yeah, have rain in your life to appreciate the sunshine." A great gospel singer, and she writes, lives in Middle Georgia, outside of Macon, Georgia, a little town called Perry, and and she writes gospel songs, and she sings at every funeral and every wedding and every
And
church
is she
service.
still alive?
And she's still alive.
And she's still doing it.
And she's still doing it. She put out a wonderful record with us, and MusicMaker was able to, over the years, first fix her roof, then we fixed the side of her house. We were able to keep her in transportation, help her go to Europe, just do all sorts of interesting
So
things.
you don't just give her money; you help them with.
Yeah, the money is a small note. The money is, we've helped people get into better living situations. We've helped with housing. We've helped with getting their music out. Cash is, for maybe there was a hospital bill we're trying to pay off, or a prescription, a monthly, she was, when you get Social Security, if you're an agricultural worker, it's a much lower scale. So those folks we know that are retired agricultural workers, their average income is between $4,000 and $5,000 a year from their Social Security, and of course, there's no savings.
Right.
And so it's amazing how these people can survive with such little money.
So, and with her, I was reading that when she went to Europe, this is what I thought was hysterical. She went to Europe.
Cans.
Well, yeah, that was cool. That was a great story.
Yeah, and she went to Europe, and we were hauling around two huge suitcases, one with her beaded gowns, and another one was so heavy we didn't know what it was. And in a couple of days, we asked her what it was, and it was canned food. She was worried about the food, not being able to like the food over there, but she loved the food over there. But we opened it up, and there was little beanie weenies and sardines and canned spaghetti and all those little things, just in case she didn't like the food. So she shared it. I said, "Man, we're not carrying this anymore." And she shared it with all the guys. And we just ate on that for a couple of days at night.
Who knew? It's great because you never know. I mean,
and she never know. You're traveling a lot of time with our job. Yeah. It's like taking your grandmother or grandfather who's never been out of their little town to Europe, and not just one of them. You're taking 9 or 10 of them at a time. And so that was her worry. Concern was food,
Yeah, it's just these stories. When I was reading them, and
you can't make them up. They're all real.
No, you can't, and you can so appreciate what's behind the music, understanding what's behind the person.
Yeah.
So Chris is asking, what is the significance of that beautiful chair that I would love to have that you're sitting on? The big, colorful chair. Oh,
it's Sam's chair. That was a gift to Guitar Gabriel, our founding artist. And it's some antique dealer gave it to Gabe. And when Gabe died, I didn't know what to do with it. So I gave it to a friend of our named Sam the Dot Man. He's an elderly African-American folk artist. So he's pretty famous down here. And I gave it to him, and the next week he had painted it and gave it back to me. And he painted Gabe on it, and we call it Gabe's Throne. And since that time, we've taken a lot of pictures about every MusicMaker artist that comes through. As someone sits down on it, and we take their picture with it.
It's a great chair. I'd like to have it in my house.
Yeah, actually, a great chair, and a great folk artist, and a lot of he's still going at 86. That fella.
So, what is the oldest one of musicians? One of these musicians. What's the oldest one? How old are they?
Alive now?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. 89, I would think. Is Eddie Tigner 89? I think Eddie Tigner, we're doing a show with him in 2 weeks. He was one of the original Ink Spots. It's an old jazz group.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
and he's one of the original, and he toured with them for 35 years. And we're going to go do a show in Columbia, Missouri, the Roots and Blues and Barbecue Festival. So he's still touring, at 89.
So what is your? I want to play. We have a little music to play, but I want to ask you something. Like, who are you really? Like, you've got this huge heart. You're surrounded with all these older people. I mean, and you have to. I mean, I know how I am when I'm around, an older person. I'm like really careful with them, and want to make sure they're okay and all that kind of
I'm
stuff.
not that. If you know me, I'm not that careful, and I'm not that. We treat them like just everybody else. I try to be respectful, and the main thing is trust. This is a culture that has, in a business I'm in, that doesn't have much trust. So we all trust each other, and trust is earned. By one day, every day it's earned, and over time it's earned more. Because these people have been through the mill. So if you say you're going to do something, you do it, and so. That's who I am as someone try to be someone that is honest, and just those simple things. Honesty is the best policy, and try to just keep those basic human rights and human kindness and human love to work all together to push our cause down the road. Faith can move mountains. I started this as just a broke college kid and a broken down old blues man with one guy. And we're here 20 years later, and we've helped hundreds of artists. To me, it's amazing. And we're still no one really knows what we're still a small, tiny little nonprofit organization trying to help these folks. So I'm glad to be on this journey.
So you mentioned, I think you said you said 300?
Yeah, I think that's it.
How many are there out there to work with? I mean...
I wish we could help, right? I just made a list of artists we wish we could work with Aaron Greenhood, who does our programs, and I think there's 20 people that I know of great. There's thousands of people out there that could use our help. We're not a massive aid agency. We're just a tiny, small nonprofit, so we have to be highly selective in the people we work with. But, it's endless. There's it's all. I couldn't put a number on it.
Right. So let me ask you something, Tim. Preserving this music. When will you know? Is there a point that you will know that you've arrived?
Arrived doing
At
what?
preserving it. I mean, when is your work?
No, I don't know. I think when the Carolina Chocolate Drops won a Grammy, that was a moment that they kept alive a music of old MusicMaker that kept the family music alive for 100 years, and the last member was passing, and this young group kept it going. That really surprised me, and that really. Was something, or Dom Flemons of the Drops now on his own, his music and how he just recorded on his new record that's doing very well. Some of our MusicMaker artists, James Davis, Georgia Drumbeat.
Uh-huh.
That is really encouraging.
How is this? Is this Americana music? Is this mountain music? Is this everything?
Yeah. It's all, I would say it's all Americana music. It's who we are. It's soul music. It's R&B. Mm-hmm. It's country. It's bluegrass. It's who we are as a nation. It's the music that was created in the South. It's even if you don't like music, it affects our language, how we all talk.
What do you mean by that? How we all talk? What do you mean?
I mean, like sayings that. Songs that were popular on the radio, like the band. I mean, the songs like "The Weight," take a load off. That's an old American saying.
Yeah.
Everyone says, "Hey, this is a load off." That means sit down.
Right.
An old saying that came from the South.
And came from music.
It came from music.
I never thought about it like that, actually. All the phrases and all the ahas that you get, that have come out of music.
Yeah, it goes on.
It's an interesting.
And the feelings, the expression of the human heart are just they're universal.
So, what is it about the music that is interesting to Europeans? Why do they want you to play there?
Well, I think in the Europeans, it's beyond. They have been listening to our music and celebrating our music for so long now. It's really part. They have taken on it as their own,
Oh, yeah.
and they're great purveyors. The English are a great example. The Eric Claptons and all those British bands that really know our music so well. And then the French, they look at themselves as the center of the universe for arts, and in many ways they are. And they embrace the blues and jazz and West African music and Russian choral music and all sorts of film and stuff. So they're just very art oriented people.
Yeah,
And so
I can see that. I mean, I know how I get excited when I see, steel drums and somebody playing from Africa.
yeah,
It's exciting. I'm going to ask
they help
Amnon.
us.
I'm going to ask Amnon to play. Can you do it? Okay. Just play the first thing. We're gonna. Tim sent us some CDs. Freight Train Boogie. What about that?
Oh, Freight Train Boogie. That is awesome. That is Captain Luke playing a jaw harp. It's like a Jew's harp. It's a little metal thing you put in your mouth with a wire. And you hear it like on country music mostly, but here is a rare example of an old black guy doing a sound of a train.
All right, we're gonna play some sampling of it. So he's playing that with his mouth?
Yep, and
Cool.
like and a little wire on a piece of metal,
Oh my
stroking
God.
that blade.
Wow. And so that's cool. And
Yeah.
he's still alive.
He's one of the first artists I met, and he is 86. And he was one of the younger artists I worked with. Now he's one of the oldest. But we've been together. I met him in 1991. We're still working together.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, that's a while.
That is a while. That is a
John
while.
Coleman, I met in college when I was 1981 when I met him. So that's amazing. Isn't it?
It's extra. It really is, and just the diversity of
Spent my
talent.
grown up life with these guys.
Yeah, you have, haven't you?
Yeah, since
I mean,
was-
you're family, aren't you?
They're family.
They're family.
Yeah.
I mean, they must absolutely adore you.
I guess we're family, so everything that entails. I think we all love each other.
Do you have children, Tim? Do you have
I
children?
have two children, Lucas and Lila.
And how are they involved in all of this? What do they think
I
of
think
this?
it will come to them later in their lives. We worked out of our house for 15 years, so all these people, their aunts and uncles, and Captain Luke is they know the coolest person in the world. They've already met him. Captain Luke, there's no one cooler, or John D. or Micah Vine Hayes. Those are their aunts and uncles, and now I think as they're getting into high school and starting to have a little reflection, they realize that not all their friends know so many great African American blues and jazz and artists, and that's just the norm. They're not so musically inclined, but they all love music, which they like, and so that's
Right.
nice.
That is great. And we mentioned these names, and certainly, like some of them, they were, Etta. I mean, that was her born name. But what about some of these other names? How did they acquire those names?
Well, I don't. Moms gave them to him. Adolphus Bell. I always liked that. Was a great one. Jerry Boogie McCain.
And how did they get those names? Where did they come from?
The one is Drink Small. Everyone thought that name was made up, but that's on his birth certificate.
Ah.
So there's a great song on there, President Clinton Blues, on the CD we gave. That I think a lot of these are just given names. Neil Big Daddy Patman, maybe given by the community. Trying to think of some other funnier names. Mr. Q, because his name is Q Cell Subtle. I don't know if they're just like anyone else got the name, I guess.
Wow. It's so interesting because we're not just talking about a person. We're not just talking about music. We're talking about an entire culture that envelops all of these idiosyncrasies and things that, how would you even know if somebody like a Tim didn't come down the mountain or across the stream and share it with us? We wouldn't know. And it makes our world so much closer. What were you going to say, Tim?
Well, that's what it is. There's our country is divided deeply in so many levels. Poverty and race being a big one. If you're talking about freedom, and that's one thing MusicMaker does, is an access to that side of the tracks that you're afraid to go down, or most people are scared of, and or into that community of farming community that no one goes to anyways. But if you spend the time to go there, you'll find greatness, and that's what makes our country great. There's just, the everyday man is great. A lot of, I'm not the first one to think about this. Studs Terkel and Woody Guthrie and so many people, talked about that more eloquently than I. But Martin Luther King, but what all those guys talk about it's true, and you just have to take the time to make that trip and stop at that church or stop at that.
Right. Got to take the time to listen.
Yeah, I listen.
So we're going to play another. Do you have another piece to play? What's the next one? Okay, pick one. Which one do you want us to play?
Me from that CD?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there a Captain Luke singing on that one?
Is there a Captain Luke?
Yeah. There was one. How about President Clinton Blues? We mentioned that.
President Clinton.
It's Drink Small, talking about President Clinton. It's the best. It's my favorite rendition of the Clinton.
President Clinton?
Yeah, it's talking about Monica and.
What's the name of the song?
President Clinton's Blues.
President Clinton. Did you see that? All right, here we go.
This is the President Clinton Blues. I'm playing in the Piedmont order, because he's from Arkansas. I don't know why people worrying about Clinton. The man did the same thing that Adam did to Eve. They act like that's the worst thing in the world. I like President Clinton. That's a good man. What I like about him, he's a good fella. He's not gay. He's a real man. I love him. Well, don't worry about President Clinton, boy. Go on and live your life. President Clinton, go on and live your life. Your old lady said, don't worry about it, baby. I'm still your wife. What's his wife's name? Hillary. President Clinton, don't worry. Go on and live your life. Don't worry. President Clinton, go on and live your life. Hillary says, don't worry, baby. I'ma stick by you. I'll always be your wife.
Tim.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here with a big smile. Both Amnon and I are just like sitting here with these biggest smiles, and my cheeks are about to hurt. Or maybe not about, they are hurting. There's so much personality.
Yeah.
In this music.
And that's what those guys are. That's a drink. He's always like that. He watches the news, he listens, and that's the perfect job of a real, at the core, what a after emancipation, slaves were allowed to travel, and they traveled and they saw new things, and they hadn't traveled for 100 years or more. And so guys like Drake were the people that spread the news of what's happening, what's going on, what they saw, because a lot of people didn't get to travel, and a lot of musicians did. And so Drake is still taking that role now, and telling people and his perspective on the news, and this particularly, make
Wow.
I think, a pretty good jab at Bill and the whole thing.
Yes.
So but it's elucidating too, with a sense of humor. It's fun.
And I love how they just like they smile it. They
Yeah.
I love the
Not too serious.
Yeah, and I just it's like it's so loving and so it's adorable and it's loving and it's it's like like anybody would be singing it right to me. I love that.
Yeah.
So it's great.
They are talking, and that's the way we record, and that's the greatest compliment. It's recorded and documented in a way, and it's like going to see a preacher when you go to a church, and there's a really good preacher talking. You think they're talking directly to you in your life,
right?
And then you turn around, and everyone's moved, and everyone's having that same experience, right. And that's entertainment, or that's what those guys do.
Right.
It's great.
So it's not just preserving the history, but it's preserving the history of what they're telling you about history.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And there's one, I don't know if you have, there's a track there called Going Away by John Lee Ziegler. And, if I didn't do anything but record that one song, I did something important. It really shows what was happening with music before blues came in, before the radio was important or was even around, or records. It harkens back to a really ancient, it's almost like a direct link of what was happening with the slaves from West Africa when they landed here in America. And to record that in the 90s and still hearing ancient slave music being played was remarkable, and it still stands as probably one of the most remarkable pieces.
So what was it? We'll play.
You call it John Lee Ziegler, and it's called Going Away.
Okay, so when we end, we'll play that in our kind of going out
Yeah,
party.
it's a good one.
So let's
awesome.
Right. So we're almost out of time, but let me ask you something. Where will people find you? What will they find when they find you on your website? What do you? Yeah,
man, they're gonna find they're gonna have so much fun when they go see our website. They're gonna feel better about themselves. There's so many YouTubes to watch. There's so much free music that you can get. If you sign up for our weekly newsletter, you can get a free track of music every week. You can learn of where we're playing. You can learn of our book. We have a museum exhibit that's going around the country. You can learn about that. But main thing, it's just like you take a little step into MusicMaker. It's a total break from the rest of your life. And it's another musical world that you know nothing about or heard nothing about, anything quite like it. And it's quite enjoyable because every artist is completely unique and different. And if you donate, it makes you feel good because you're helping a small nonprofit, and it's helping the cause very directly. If you like helping a few people, and your money getting a great effect, you'll have fun in that regard as well. And you can call us on the phone and talk to Aaron and Corinne or Corn or anyone at the office, and they'll be nice and they can tell you more about us.
Sounds
or call
good.
me up and I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, sounds good. I think it's a very worthwhile nonprofit. It's the cause is worthwhile beyond. I mean, it's our history, and you can see the people that you're actually, supporting. So
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to do that, and we'll
go buy them a guitar, and
Yeah.
I'll find a good home for it.
Good. Okay. Listen to that. That's fabulous. And so with that, we are, Tim, we're at the end of our time, and I really want to thank you so very much for being here and jumping through hoops with the technology. You did a great
I wish we
job.
could have done better.
So
But thank you so much, and letting people know about us and taking your time.
it's
And,
our pleasure, and we'd like to have you on again, and maybe we can
Okay.
at that time maybe somebody, maybe one or
maybe
two
I'll
of
bring
you.
a blues artist.
Yes, we'd love to
Awesome.
do that. Love to
That'd
do
be
that.
awesome.
Yeah. And then with that, everyone, thank you so much for being here. We're going to play a little bit of this last piece of music, and just take it to heart. And we'll see you soon. So Amnon,
Thank you.
bye. Thank you.
Run away, I'm going away, I'm going away. Baby, I'm going away. Baby, that's to worry all my doggone, worry all my doggone, worry all my doggone mind. Don't want me if you don't want me. You don't have to tell me no dog. Tell me no doggone, tell me no dog.